Oh, muted. I had myself muted. We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my co-host. I said host again. There, look, see, I'm muted. I'm flustered. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
Good. I think you're flustered because you're excited to argue with me about these SEC quarterback. This is probably the most we've disagreed on any of these lists that we've done over the past month. I'm not getting no spoilers yet, but you and I are very far off of one another. We're like, there is not an agreement point. I don't think. I don't think of one similarity.
I see. I guess you think that. I guess that I did not. I do not see it that way. I think when we get to this list here tonight on SEC quarterbacks, I actually don't mind your list. I think here's the thing with me with SEC quarterbacks at the current moment.
Okay.
I could make an argument for anybody being on the list in the top 5. Now, could there be some egregious stuff about guys that you put at 1? Potentially, right? Like, I mean, you can't throw John Mateer or Nico Iamaleava in there. Okay. I like, there will be some pushback. Okay. But I don't think that there's anybody that you can't have the debate on. What I would say is that I do see something with the SEC quarterbacks from an athletic standpoint that I don't see anywhere else in the country, from just a pure athleticism standpoint. So when you go that route, that's when you start winning me over. So like today, we'll talk about your number 1 quarterback. He's the most athletic quarterback in the SEC. It's not close. But I would even throw another one in there. Like, if you talked about Taylor Green being a top 5 quarterback in the SEC, we got to have a serious conversation at the current moment because of what he did in the SEC a year ago when everything else around is crumbling. I actually don't hate your list. I do think there's a lot of give and take here. So maybe we will debate here, but I don't – look, there's a lot of talent 1 through 5, 1 through 6 that I see here.
Well, I think out of any of the conferences that we're going to talk about, Blake, I think the thing that caught my attention the most is there's a lot of up-and-comers. There's a lot of young dudes. Last year's crop of upperclassmen that moved on, whether they transferred or they entered the NFL draft, they were all pretty underwhelming. And I think that if this list more than any, these top 5s that we have, we project a little bit. We're trying to guess like how we think that things could end up turning out. It's less about like at this current moment, more so what's going to happen this season. I wouldn't be shocked if some random player that is a first-time starter at a team or somebody who transferred in ends up cracking these top 5s by the end of the season. Like I wouldn't be surprised at that at all.
Well, Joe, here's something that we didn't do, and we can spoil this. Austin Simmons isn't on either one of our lists.
And he could end up cracking it. He could crack that top 5.
So he has the ability to be at number 1. So to your point, I mean, Ryan Puglisi at Georgia. I mean, like, we're going to talk about spring football. We're going to try to break 3 up within these next couple of weeks here. If we get to it, we'll get to Oklahoma, Bama, and Clemson potentially here tonight. We'll go to the Big Ten next week. But just staying with the theme of the SEC here tonight, as we did Big Ten on Wednesday. Joe, I just got to be real with you here. I think that there's a lot of athleticism. And see, here's the thing that I think about quarterbacks nationally, not just the SEC here when we talk about them tonight. How many got drafted in this past draft class in the first round? Wasn't it 7? Didn't 7 quarterbacks?
6. It was 6.
Okay.
Yep.
The most ever. And we literally thought that there wasn't going to be some drop-off of quarterback play when you had 6 first-round picks in the NFL draft. Again, I'm going to make the argument tonight. And shit, I can make the argument right now. Joe, I don't care. I don't care what anybody tells me. Think about this. Nico Iamaleava might be the least athletic from a running game standpoint that you have in the guys that we'll talk about tonight. John Mateer might be the least athletic. I mean, like, those are the things that we're debating here. So, again, when you're talking about, I think the SEC, and we'll talk about this, the SEC quarterbacks have a massive, massive, massive upside. Man, that floor could be a little low, too. So, there's a lot of things that we'll discuss there tonight, too.
Yeah, just overall, it's an exciting group. Like the Big Ten had a couple of dudes that like we could we can hang our hats on and know that they're going to be steady. Like we know that Drew Aller, we hope he takes the next step forward, but we know he's one of the premier names, and we know that Luke Altmaier is super reliable and is probably going to be super steady this upcoming year. But yeah, there is a swinging pendulum of outcomes. There completely is. And the other thing too that's really cool that we have coming up in the next few weeks with spring practices is we're going to find out maybe even if there's a name of a guy that wins a starting job that we're not expecting.
Ty Simpson's not going to be on our list, but we'll talk about Alabama spring football here tonight. Ryan Puglisi. Yep. I mean, the legend of Ryan Puglisi lives on.
Hey man, I told you that kid was going to be good. I told you when Raiola didn't commit to Georgia and they
didn't freak out and Georgia didn't freak out. That's when you should have known.
I try to tell people.
Think about this. This is the way that I quantify it. Let's say that Aiden Childs at Michigan State's the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th best quarterback in the Big Ten.
Okay.
That might be Austin Simmons right now on our list.
Well, Childs could end up being really good, but I understand.
I do think, but that's my point. That's my point. Like, that's the discussion that you're having here. So we'll talk about it. Again, spring games, we'll go to Oklahoma, Alabama, and we will go into the ACC tonight. We'll talk a little bit about Clemson if we have the chance, but spring practice is here. How about this, Joe? This is what I'm going to do. If there's a team that they want us to talk about spring football, hit us up. Let us know, and we'll talk about it. But nevertheless, we're just going to pick some teams that we potentially think that could make the playoff, or big name teams here that are in spring football now. All right, Joe, let's do this. Let's talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. Before we do that, everybody do us a favor by hitting the like and share. Share to all those groups. If you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages, you're watching us, listening to us on YouTube or on Rumble, hit that subscribe button and notification bell wherever you listen to podcasts. Rate, review, and subscribe. By the way, bud, not a pat on the back, because we and you are getting there. How about your boy getting into the top 25 on AYS of audio podcast in the country? Did you see this?
Wait, what?
SEC podcast, the audio numbers from Spotify and Apple came out. Your boy is right there knocking on the door from some of these top guys.
Where are you? You're 25?
23. But they put me at 23 because I wanted Michael Jordan's number.
Where did you see this?
I posted this. There's this guy, $1 Million Podcast, who does all the rankings or whatever. I'm just saying. Sweet. By the way, Ruffino and Joe show, we're going to crack the top 100 nationally this year. So
I'm calling it.
Speaking of the SEC, Joseph, look at how many teams are in March Madness from this conference. We're a basketball conference now.
Yeah, well, because your football is underperforming, so you got to be good at something else now. I get it. It's cool.
When you win 18 of the last 20 national titles and you say underperforming, okay.
I'm obviously joking. But yeah, well, the Big Ten's taken over, so now you got to be better at basketball. Normally, that was a Big Ten sport.
I got to be honest with you, brother. I know that you and your roommate Sean were going. He was giving you a hard time this weekend. Mm-hmm. Which, brother, all of your other co-hosts besides your boy people are coming after him this weekend. Ryan, some scout said, "Why can't you have the first?"
That guy sucks. That guy's an idiot,
bro. By the way. The dumbest comment I've ever heard in my life. Stop having an opinion on the draft. Like, that has got to be the dumbest
thing. Well, it's like I have no opinion because you didn't work for a team. It's like you have to – the media has to cover the damn sport. You can't demand that people don't cover it and have an opinion. The speculation creates entertainment.
It's so funny. Don't TV people get hired to be GMs and stuff like that? Like Mike Mayock.
Yes.
Interesting.
Shocking.
Very. You know what? Tom Brady's a commentator on Fox now. He knows nothing about football.
Right.
Has no idea.
Right.
No idea whatsoever. I just compared ourselves to Tom Brady.
Yeah, not the same thing.
All right, let's get to it here. Joe, we've been doing our top 5 teams, top 5 coaches, top 5 everything now that we're in the offseason. But on Wednesday, we did our top 5 quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Tonight, we go to the SEC. Who are your top 5 quarterbacks in the SEC?
Number 1. Shocking.
You're doing this. You're doing this
Nope.
just to troll.
No, I am absolutely am not. I mean, everybody knows my opinion of Garrett Nussmeier, and I will unpack it. I think 2 is pretty favorable considering how negative I've been about him. Number 1, LaNorris Sellers from South Carolina. Number 2, Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. Number 3, Arch Manning from Texas. Number 4, DJ Lagway from Florida, and then number 5, Nico Iamaleava from Tennessee. Probably said that wrong. I still can't get it.
Iamaleava.
I don't think that's correct either.
It is Iamaleava. That's how we're going to roll with it here. All right.
Okay.
Here's my top 5 here. Number 1, Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU. Arch Manning, number 2. Number 3, LaNorris Sellers at South Carolina. Number 4, John Mateer at Oklahoma. I kind of got sold on this one. We'll talk about that. And then DJ Lagway at number 5. I want to say this, Joe, and you're going to be very mad that I said this. I texted you this morning, and for a long part of the day, I had Taylor Green from Arkansas. If we do have some time, I want us to have a conversation on Taylor Green if we do have time. But let's go to number 1. You have LaNorris Sellers at 1. I have him at number 3. Before we get going here, you said before the show started that you thought that I would hate this. I don't hate it.
Well, I thought that you would hate the aspect that I don't have Garrett Nussmeier at 1. That's what I'm getting at here. And that was why I was expecting there to be
I don't. I'm listen. Nobody by his own fan base gets called a troll more about anything more than a Garrett Nussmeier and me saying he can't have 17 turnovers in a season. Again, I'm going to get killed for it, but make your point. I want to listen to it.
I think LaNorris Sellers showed us how dominant he could be as an athlete, how impactful he can be in a game, despite not needing to be overly dominant as a passer. And I say that believing that LaNorris Sellers is going to take a step forward this offseason, that I think that he is going to, once you add an ability for him to be a cleaner passer and a cleaner decision maker and to not hold on to the ball as long as he did. He was a redshirt freshman this past year.
Yep.
I think he's going to become even more dangerous. I will always talk about upside, and I will always lean towards upside. The fact that Sellers was able to win games for South Carolina and be a driving force for their success this past season, despite having inconsistencies as a passer, makes me really believe that he is going to be even more dominant this season. And now there's a big contingency there. Does he improve as a passer? Do we see more playmaking and dynamic playmaking outside of him using his legs? That is a bit of a big contingency. But we saw the flashes of what he could capably become in spurts. And to compare him to Garrett Nussmeier, because that's how this conversation is going to go, because you have him at number 1, and I think most people would push to have him at number 1. Nussmeier's been around for a while. He started a full season last year. He had a lot of brilliant moments and reminded us of why he could be a first-round pick. But God, I get frustrated with the turnovers. I get really frustrated with the silly decision-making. It's not even aggressiveness to make big plays. It's bad decisions that takes his team out of games. If he improves that is incredibly important and necessary for LSU to take a leap forward. But I just don't feel like he has that in him. That's been my biggest problem with Nussmeier, is that there's just that innate Daniel Jones type decision-making that has held him back.
I do think he's more gifted than Daniel Jones as a passer. We'll get to Garrett in just a minute. There's a couple things I want to talk about LaNorris Sellers that I think that your overall take will be right. Production will be wrong, though. Let me tell you why. That team completely changed when Rocket Sanders got out of that lineup. Vastly different team when they could not lean on the running game in big moments. Let's talk about what happened a year ago, and I think it's very crucial for LaNorris Sellers. You talked about improving as a passer. I agree. Look, the 7 turnovers that he had, 5 of them came before halfway through the season. He had 2 at the remaining part of the season, 1 being in the bowl game. Again, we've had this conversation with a running back at slot receiver. They have not developed very well at the receiver position. He's got a brand new offensive coordinator as well that he's got to rebuild the rapport with. And I thought as the season went on, that Loggins and the crew really did good with him. And look, he was just a freak athlete. I do think that even statistically, if it's down, I think his play will be elevated. I don't know if they can rebound from some of the things that they got to overcome as a team. There are a lot of things that they are missing. I know that this is going to sound stupid. How many stops did South Carolina get to be able to get him the ball late in games like the Clemson game or like the Texas A&M game when he goes off the way that he does? As an athlete, here's my humble opinion. He is the best athlete at quarterback in the SEC. There's not a remote there is a remote discussion that you can have. There are a lot of talented guys from an athleticism standpoint. Joe, he broke 7. I went back and looked at this. He broke 17 tackles in the Texas A&M game. 17. He broke 12 of them in the second half, 9 of them coming in the fourth quarter. 9. That is the kind of athlete that you're dealing with. I don't know what they look like at receiver. So, and that's not really on him, right? Like, that's not on him for me to say, hey, he doesn't have the weapon, so I'm going to put him down. There was one thing that where I could not put him above Garrett and why I couldn't put him above Arch at the current moment, health. He took a beating last year. He was out in the second half. He got hurt late in games, and he had to run the football. I don't think that he had the ability to pass in late games because he was taking a beating. They got to get him in critical situations and be able to run the football. That offensive line has got to be better. But, Joe, look at the beginning part of the season when he was completing 55% of his passes. At the end of the season, he ends with 65.6% completion percentage for 2,500 yards, 18-7. The dude's a really good quarterback, man. I think if this dude were anywhere else and he had a better offensive line, better weapons, we would be having a national championship type of conversation about the team that he's on. I do think he's that talented. That's why I'm not coming at you after that. The problem of why I couldn't put him above Garrett, the problem of why I couldn't put him above Arch. I do think as a passer, those two guys have a higher ceiling. And I think that it comes down to those two guys have better weapons. I do think South Carolina takes a step back, which ultimately hurts him. So it's a little biased about not really him, but things that are around him that I don't know if he'll succeed with.
Okay, so the last part I disagree with. I think that Arch has a higher ceiling than him because Arch has shown us like in some insane highlights.
Oh, I agree.
The way that he's tapped in and the team that he's on is unbelievable. And he has a prolific offensive coach that knows how to coach him up and coach the team up. I don't agree about Nussmeier, though. Like, I feel like Nussmeier removed the interceptions that he had, the 12 interceptions that he had.
Mm-hmm.
Nussmeier statistically hit his ceiling. 4,000 yards, 35 passing touchdowns, which is a great season. The way that he improves is he removes the interceptions. I wouldn't call that like a higher ceiling, though, if he throws less than 12 interceptions. That's just him making less mistakes.
You don't think that Garrett's a better overall passer than he is and has a higher ceiling as a passer?
He's obviously a better passer and he has a big arm. But I think in college football, to be really, truly successful, you need to have good athleticism. I don't think Garrett Nussmeier has that.
And that's why I said as a passer, I think that.
But I think LaNorris has a high ceiling as a passer. He's got a huge arm. He just didn't know how to. We were watching a young kid that was just going out there and being just natural, like was just going out there and playing the sport and finding success and bringing energy to his team. That was what we watched. I think that is translatable. I just get super worried. I don't mean to cut you off. My final point. I just get super worried putting my eggs in the basket of a guy who is taking away from his team. I'm not saying that he is some anchor. And he has a capability to be a top 3 quarterback in the country, maybe even the best quarterback in the country this upcoming season. But the interceptions, every time that he made those mistakes, it was such a brutal detraction, and it held them back so much. Like the Alabama game is a good example.
In fairness, I'm with you on that. But if you're going to talk about turnovers, we got to talk about the 15 that Sellers had.
But the difference though is that
there's no difference. There's
no redshirt freshman, and Garrett Nussmeier has been around for much longer.
They're both first-time starters. I'm with you. But if we're going to talk about one player's turnovers, you got to talk about the other ones. Joe, he lost 7 fumbles and threw 7 picks.
One of them had a top 5 pick on the offensive line, and multiple other All-American offensive linemen. LaNorris Sellers' offensive line was awful. It was terrible.
All right, if we want to go with Garrett, because I've been prolonging it.
Okay.
I understand your concern on the turnovers. Nobody has been more vocal about him than I have. No one. I don't care what anybody tells me. I've been more vocal on Garrett Nussmeier than anybody in the country. I get labeled by my own fan base to be a hater. I've taken a beating behind this, literally, where I was telling you, like, people directly come after me and Like, hey, I know where you live. Here's your house. By the way, it wasn't my house. But like this is insanity. You're right on one thing. He's got to limit the turnover. 17 is too much. There are a couple of things that I want to say that want to get to, though, with him that we got to highlight as for him as a team. They did not put him in the right situations. I do not believe that his play caller, like Joe, I could tell you a story. Well, I said it. Like, you got the offensive coordinator at practice talking about, he ran the football at spring practice. And he points to the media and is like, I know that y'all like that. Well, stop reading my clippings. Get to work here. The bottom line here for me is, okay, it's always been his problem. And he's got to be the one to fix it. He did not have a running game. He had two receivers that were the same person. He had injuries at that position, and they couldn't run the football. The thing with him is, Joe, of the 12 interceptions he had, 10 of them came in the second half. Teams adjusted it against him, and he didn't know what to do. His coaching staff didn't know what to do. But I'm with you. Garrett has been who he's been. He's got to take a step forward. As of right now, though, okay, he's thrown for 4,000. He threw for 4,000 yards last year without a running game. And
he almost had to, but I understand your point.
But that's my point. I mean, Texas A&M, they ran for 35 yards as a team did LSU. What do you want him to do there? Now, the interceptions that he had are god awful. Am I going to get the Garrett Nussmeier at the end of the game against Ole Miss on a consistent basis, or am I going to get the A&M in the second half, Garrett Nussmeier? That's the question that you're ultimately asking here. Which one of those guys shows up? If the one against Ole Miss at the end that breaks a tackle from Walter Nolan, jukes Jared Ivey in the open field and hits Aaron Anderson down the field for a touchdown. Is that what I'm getting? Because that's athleticism, okay? Or am I getting a guy that rolls out left, throws a prayer up to a 5'8" receiver, and prays to God that he comes down with it and he gets picked in the red zone on your own side of the field, meaning A&M gets the ball in the red zone? Which one do we get? Here's what I would say. I am going to have faith that those turnovers decrease. How? I don't know. He's got to prove that he's a better decision maker. But they got to start with something that has nothing to do with him. He's got to get better help in the running game. I do agree with you. Just to make it very well known, there could be a strong possibility that the turnovers do not get fixed. There's a strong possibility of that. But I think that there are a couple of guys, to your point, I could see Sellers above him at the end of the year. I could see Arch Manning above him at the end of the year, or John Mateer. He's got to prove that he can limit those and take his team to the next level.
And that's part of my whole discussion with him. And I will concede to you that the play calling was like a big talking point that we had during the season.
It was awful.
It was a big problem of mine that they were not deliberately trying to run the ball earlier and more often, and they caught themselves in situations where they were chasing, and then when they were chasing, they were forcing how often they were throwing it, which then created too many opportunities for Garrett Nussmeier to make mistakes. I think that there could be a completely different version of Garrett Nussmeier this year if they do run the ball more effectively. If he throws for less yards, I bet he throws for more touchdowns and less interceptions.
I bet you they have more wins.
Right. They're going to be a more balanced team. You just have to find that consistent balance. Otherwise, you're going to end up screwing yourself. But the positive thing with Nussmeier is that he does have the tools to be a really good quarterback. He has the arm strength. He's the coach's kid. It's the stupid cliche that you hear with any kid who's a starting quarterback in a big team. He's a coach's kid. He's a smart young man. He's been around the game forever. I hope that at some point something clicks, because once it does click and he improves his over-willingness to turn the ball over, once that goes away, he enters into a different bracket for me.
He does enter into a different bracket, and then here becomes the second thing. I'm going to say this to you, and I'm not going to elaborate, but I know what I'm saying, okay? They got serious speed at wide receiver. They got dumb speed. Like, they ain't had this speed since Malik and BTJ. They haven't. Berrien Brown's a problem. He's going to be a problem. They don't have anybody that can cover him at the current moment. Neither do they have anybody covering Chris Hilton. The problem with LSU last year was they got two guys that were possession guys, and it didn't work out. And by the way, Kyron Lacy still had 1,000 yards receiving. So, I mean, like that still so dumb. The weapons that he has this year are 10 times, 2 times better than what he had a year ago. The guys that are starting. I think that they're better with Brown, Hilton, and Anderson, but Trey'Dez Green is a different human being. Can he? Bauer Sharp, by the way, the tight end from Oklahoma. Can they put it all together would be the question for me. Here's a name that I want you to throw out there. The number 1 running back in the country, Harlem Berry.
Mm-hmm.
Get familiar. Because they're going to throw the ball to him. They ain't going to run the ball, but they're going to throw it to him. All right, let's get to the inevitable here. You have Arch Manning at number 3. I have Arch Manning at number 2. Why do you think Arch Manning sucks as a quarterback, Joe?
Oh, all right. Stop it. Hot take. Arch Manning will finish this year as the top quarterback in the conference and as a top 3 quarterback in the country. I just think it would be asinine to put him at number 1 on a list when he has never played. I think that would be a little bit too bullish to do in the middle of March. Like, that would be freaking crazy. But God, if he lives up to the hype, which those couple spurts that we've seen, even when they've brought him in to do the Wildcat crap, which was kind of weird, he checks every box. Like, the craziest part about him is learning that he's a freakish athlete, knowing that his 2 uncles were slow as shit, knowing that he can fly and he can pick up speed. He could be a great decision maker, a great player on the move, a threat on the ground, and a consistently accurate, tactile player at quarterback. If he checks all those boxes and he plays to our expectations, I really think he's going to be the number 1 guy. And he has the major benefit of playing on a team and getting to sit for 2 years and getting to be around quality winning football and being around an elite decision maker on offense in Steve Sarkisian. All this stuff is setting up Arch to be as good as we believe he can be.
All right. Let's get with Arch. What was the conversation that you and I had 2 years ago on him? What was legit? When he was coming out and went to Texas, everybody called him what? A day 1 starter.
Which I didn't agree with.
Which I know that you didn't, but it was the narrative that we were fighting. He had to get bigger. He had to get stronger. He had to mature. It's time now. I think the legacy is going to hit here. I think the legacy of the Manning name will hit here. The thing that I worry about with him, okay, he is a first-time starter. I don't know. I do see a scenario where he's not the top quarterback in the SEC next year. Here's why. Joe, first-time starting is first-time starting. I don't give a shit if his last name is Manning or what it is. There are going to be humps and bruises. By the way, he goes to Athens early in the season. That's going to be a tough situation for him. How does he respond? Does he come out there glowing? Then we have a different conversation. That's a conversation piece that we have to have. I do think that he is the best thing that could happen to Texas football now that Quinn Ewers is gone, though, because I felt like there was a team that was behind Arch Manning, and they knew that he would ultimately be the better quarterback than Quinn Ewers. It's how I always felt. He had a really good season, though, even when he had to come in. That's the thing, is that you've seen the flashes of what he can do, even against bad opponents. That's the part for me with Arch, that when we look at him, he does have the athleticism. He can make all the throws. The question will be, from a young quarterback for this season, how is it for a first-time quarterback, himself included, when he has to make the right decisions? Listen, I was listening to Cooper a month ago. He's like, guys, he's going to have a 2-interception game in his career. That's how he started his career off. Against ULM, I might add. Joe, he's going to have those mistakes again. So does that manifest? Which games does that manifest itself in? Listen, I think he's going to be on this list of all the guys we'll talk about today. I think he will be the best quarterback for our lifetime. Meaning, like, of all these guys playing careers, I think that he will ultimately be the best. We're talking about 1 year, okay? He's going to have growing pains. Doesn't mean that he won't lead him to a playoff. Doesn't mean he can't lead him to Atlanta. I do think that one thing that separates him more than all the other guys on this list, he does everything well. right? Like he can do everything that you need him to do. That's the point. He's not like unpolished as a passer. He's not unpolished athletically. He can make the plays. That's the thing for me that I think separates him from everybody else.
Well, so one, I understand that bringing up like, hey, this is a guy who was a first-time starter. Like we need to kind of calm ourselves a little bit. Very rarely do these guys get to sit for multiple seasons and then also be a part of teams that go on national championship runs or college football playoff runs and to reach college football playoff and getting to be around that and knowing how to take that next step. So I think that that's certainly an advantage that he has that is typically not given to a first-time starter.
Can I pause you very quickly? Can I ask you this question? Can I ask you this question then? But we did already see that with ULM. Like,
well, so what's your point? Like,
okay, well, he sat for 20 games before he got his first start, and then he came out there and he threw 2 picks. That's already happened though.
Yeah, but that's part of I would argue that's part of to his benefit that he's actually seen game action and that he's
had
to start and been able to start. So he knows what it's like. He knows how to perform. He also started against Mississippi State, which was another good opportunity for him. A bad team, but a good opportunity for him.
He didn't have an SEC win.
But I think that, to your point, though, I think that Arch Manning is going to be one of the most balanced quarterbacks in the country this year.
No doubt.
He does everything at a B+ or higher level enough to be impactful. And that is why I think he ends up being the most dynamic. And just to round it out, though, he has the best situation out of any quarterback in the country. A great defense with crazy athletes and an offense with multiple quality receivers and an offensive line that's putting a couple guys out into the NFL, but is well recruited, and they should be fine with a good offensive coordinator.
And a bona fide 5-star receiver who just had LASIK this weekend because he couldn't see.
I wonder if he's gonna. I wonder how much better he's gonna get.
Well, Dwayne. So here's an interesting story for you. Dwayne Bowe. Do you remember Dwayne Bowe played for Kansas City?
Yeah.
You know that he led the country in drops 2 years in a row at LSU, twice. He had LASIK surgery and he did not have a drop his last season at LSU. Like I remember
so you're saying he's Dwayne Bowe now.
No, I'm just saying, like, dude, the dude became a 5-star and he couldn't see.
I forgot Dwayne Bowe played at LSU. I don't know why it didn't register for me.
Probably one of my favorite players of all time. All right, in reference to Arch, I do think what does concern me, okay, he's got an offensive line that's got to be reshaped here a little bit. Here's my biggest thing with him that also doesn't go to him. Joe, they couldn't run the football last year. They could not run. Now, he can help in that, and he can create on his own, right? Like, he can do that for himself.
But they're getting guys back next year. Like, they're bringing back Trey Wisner, and then they get Cedric Baxter or CJ Baxter back on the field.
I got to be honest with you. CJ Baxter ain't fixing what happened against Georgia.
I think he does. I think he's a really good running back. I think he absolutely
Joe,
does.
when that O-line getting them cheeks clapped like that, ain't nobody fixing that now.
They didn't have 6'1", 220, man. They didn't have the battering ram that
Joe,
that
when
Cedric
your
Baxter's
O-line
gonna be.
is bad, it doesn't matter who's at running back.
Cedric Baxter is going to be the truth this upcoming year.
Okay.
I'm telling you.
Okay. And when the O-lines don't perform, running backs don't do shit. That is a fact.
Well, they're getting rid of Cameron Williams was one of the most overrated offensive linemen last year, by the way. Like, he's gone. Apparently, he wasn't super high effort from what
Kelvin Banks.
Kelvin Banks is gone, who was a good player, but he was banged up. I don't know.
I disagree with that.
You don't think Kelvin Banks was good? I thought Kelvin Banks is a tremendous film, but he got hurt. He was banged up. He's playing hurt.
Joe, everybody's playing banged up on the offensive line.
Yeah, but there's to different degrees though. Like he had a serious injury. I'm forgetting what exactly it was, but he was out for games.
They're comparing CJ Baxter to Saquon Barkley in the chat. We gonna act like that Philly doesn't have a good O-line? Are we actually gonna go there?
Well, but when the Giants, when he was on the Giants had a shit offensive line, and he still was productive.
But he wasn't the productive. He didn't have the production that he had this year, though.
But he still made that offensive line look better than it was. Can we talk about DJ Lagway, by the way?
Yes,
we got to talk about DJ Lagway.
All right, DJ Lagway at 4 for Joe. DJ Lagway comes in at number 5 for me. I got to start off here. You know why he's not higher on my list?
Why?
Joe, why isn't he throwing the football in spring practice?
Oh, is he not? I didn't know this.
Yeah, not throwing. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I know Florida fans are going to say I'm overreacting. And I may very well may be overreacting. So come in the comments and roast me if you got to. DJ Lagway at number 5 for me, number 4 for you. Let's talk on him. Your thoughts on his upcoming season?
Well, we've both spoken very highly of him, and when we did our breakout players, I know it wasn't exactly like a true breakout name to go with because everybody knows who DJ Lagway is, but those instances where he looked like he took over games, he kept them alive. The LSU game was an awesome game for him, and in the 12 games that he appeared, he had 1,900 passing yards, 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, which isn't great, and just a hair under 60% completion percentage. On a really mediocre Florida offense that didn't really have any good receivers except Chimere DK, who's going to go into the NFL, but like he's fine. He's a fine receiver.
Yeah, to your point, UG Wilson was out at that point, right? Right. Go ahead.
We know that he's got the tools. We know that he has the goods. We know that he is a good runner. We know that he has a crazy big arm and that he can make unreal throws that nobody else on this list can make. Here's the biggest part why I love him, and why he could end up finishing as the top 2 guy on this list at the end of the year. He got to play, and he got to go out there and make mistakes. And going out there and making mistakes as a freshman, a true freshman, I think is helpful for taking that next step forward because you need to make mistakes to learn from mistakes. Being afraid to make mistakes is usually what hurts and kills quarterbacks. He wasn't afraid to take risks. And there's a difference in the type of turnovers that he had and Nussmeier had because he wanted to take a risk. He knew that his arm and he could trust his arm, and it didn't come to fruition. And now he gets to learn how to better make those plays and how to amplify and improve his production. So I think that DJ Lagway, I've said this a million times, I'm going to keep saying it, is going to have insane numbers this upcoming year.
I can't go there. I can't go there for a couple of reasons. There are a couple of things. The way that Florida ended at the end of the year when he started, exceptional. Absolutely. He was a big reason why they turned around. Didn't have
he was the reason why they turned around.
Well, that's my point. Yeah, I agree. Didn't have the stats to prove it, but he was the reason is what I was trying to say. There's not a statistical game that you can look at and say he's the reason they won the game. The team got better when he went in there because they felt like, and then when the whole Billy thing came out, it wasn't the Billy thing. It was that DJ Lagway was there too and helping and making big throws in big situations. You brought up the LSU game. I'll bring up Ole Miss. Look, as bad as LSU did at the end there, Ole Miss is the bigger one. The athleticism that he shows in the pocket, the athleticism that he showed in that game in the pocket was absolutely exceptional. First-time starter, I get it, but we got to point out the inevitable. Turnovers have got to come down, right? Like you can't have a 12-9 ratio, or you can't have a 3-2 ratio, right? You can't have a 3-touchdown, 2-interception ratio. That's not going to win anywhere. I'm going to keep saying this about Florida, though. Florida's underrated, man. I'm not saying they're winning the SEC. I'm not going there. Joe, that D-line, they got a lot of production coming back there. A lot of guys that ended that season on that big winning streak that they had. They do have some receivers returning. They do add guys like Dallas to that mix as a freshman. Offensive line and run game will be interesting. You know, you bring in the young freshman last year that really helped you there at the end. Can they be productive? I do think he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in not only the conference but the country. I'm interested to see how they react to things around him. They still got Miami early in the year. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how they react as a team. Does that momentum, that end of the year for them, continue? As a prospect, man, he's really good. And some of the throws, man, were not on him. I just don't – I mean, he didn't
have a lot to work with. I mean, they have an underrated offensive line, which we've hyped up a little bit for, like, how underrated they are.
There were some spurts there.
Yes.
There were some spurts there that it was bad, though. Again, a true freshman coming in. It's so difficult when you say stuff like this on a guy that's a first-time starter, right? Because it's like you can't point out the inevitable without, oh, he was a first-time starter. You can't talk about that. I mean, can we just point out some of the inevitables?
Right. His mistakes were caused by the fact that he was a first-time starter. But again,
Right.
I think that supplies an advantage. The biggest question for him to get over the hump has a lot to do with how good the receiver room is. Like, let's just be honest with ourselves. Like, I have no idea what their receiver room is going to look like. Like, who's going to be the number one option? I don't know enough.
I do think Trey Wilson. I do think
Okay.
Trey Wilson could be a guy. I think he could be a real guy. They got talent out there now. They got speed. They got some production.
Can that stuff be actualized, though? Can that stuff actually show up on the field?
More than wide receivers, Billy Napier is the thing that scares me more than anything. Like, I mean,
yes.
Again, just because Billy did what he did does not mean to me that they've turned some magic corner here. Like, I mean, Joe, we're going jet sweep at the 1 yard line. Like, you complete 4 passes, you get there to the red zone, and you're not going to put the ball in the hands of your quarterback. You're going to run it 4 straight times. Like, let's not forget that Tennessee game. Let's not forget some of these situations that Billy will put him in to not put him in the right positions and right situations now.
Billy needs to be better. That's also a big part of this as well. That, like, he needs to show a lot more consistency with his play. I mean, that's been a huge detraction for them, is them not playing to the potential that everyone thought that Billy Napier was going to bring them. Like, you would have thought that Sark, he would have been the same level of Sark with offensive impact. Sark's shown up. It helps that he's got DJ Lagway to work with, though. But I'll continue to hype up this kid. I can't wait really for him to play to his potential.
Brother, we have him 4 at 5 on our list. That's a pretty stacked list.
Right.
All right.
Right.
To end it out here, you have at number 5, Nico Iamaleava, and I had John Mateer would be my last one here. Let's go with Nico first. Your thoughts on Nico Iamaleava and why you have him at 5?
Look, I'm giving this kid the benefit of the doubt, man. Like, we're talking about here how the first-year starter bit is important to project how a player is going to perform. Like, it's important to bring into the conversation of, like, it's the first time you're getting experience. Last year was his first time getting experience, and he showed us at the beginning of the year how good he could be. Like, he showed us some crazy talent. The way that he can place the ball, the way that he can drive the ball deep down the field, and also the way that he's an underrated athlete as well. Yeah. But he didn't utilize that enough as much as he should. I think that we assume because of a couple of shaky games where he didn't throw for a ton of yards that he was overall pretty shit last year. He still finished with 2,600 passing yards. He still finished with 19 touchdowns. He still had 5 interceptions. He was almost 64% completion percentage. Good numbers for a first-year starter. Where Nico needs to take the next step, though, because he's got all the tools, all the traits that you look for in a quarterback. He has to be more willing to take the right risks and to take risks.
Bingo.
He was incredibly timid. Incredibly timid. Way too timid. It is a plague amongst quarterbacks and something that's not talked about enough, especially in the NFL, that holds guys back. It was the Bryce Young syndrome early for why Bryce Young was having so much trouble with the Panthers. And then in the second half of this year, he started to play. He screwed him. They benched him, and then they let him start again. And he basically, you could tell that on the field, he was like, I got nothing to lose. That needs to trigger with Nico. And if it does, another guy, I know that I'm being redundant here, and it's being a little ridiculous, but like, if he plays to his potential, he could top the list. But he's just not there yet. LaNorris Sellers is the good example of a guy who takes the risks and connects on them. Now we need Nico to learn from LaNorris.
See, here's my issue that I have. Okay, we've talked a lot about first-time starters, right, tonight, because the SEC has a lot of first-time starters. Why did LaNorris Sellers, to your point here, why did he develop during the season and these other guys stayed the same?
Well, because their whole team was reckless abandonment. It was just like, we've got nothing to lose, so they all just went out there and balled. Like, that was literally it the whole season. South Carolina did that. Yeah, that's my whole point.
I'm not going to disagree with you there. I do think they were the most underrated team in the SEC that nobody, again. Joe, I would rather, what is the old saying? I would rather tame a lion than have a chicken fight my battles, right? Like I'd rather have to push guys back and take less shots than having to tell guys to take shots. Now, me as an LSU guy, people are going to be like, well, Blake, what are you talking about with Jaden? The difference with a guy like Nico or Jaden is their shots come differently. The runs are big keys to that. The timidness with Nico was not just throwing the football for me, though, Joe. It was running the football, too.
Yeah.
Right? He was timid everywhere. There are guys that, like what you talk about with LaNorris Sellers. Where was he never timid in? Brother, he would go to 2 reads, sometimes 3, and if it's not there, he's gone. He don't give a shit. He is gone. He is not going to sit back there. Nico will sit back there and improvise. My guy, go and get the 7 yards, get out of bounds, and live to fight another down, right? Like I felt like the game for him was way too fast, way too fast.
Yeah.
He did not know what he was seeing. How does it look like with a better receiving core? And we got to throw this out there. They led the SEC in drops. Tennessee was god-awful at receiver a year ago. Do they get better there will be a big question mark. But to your point, he was timid too much, and they could not figure it out. Now, people will not remember this. Remember when Nico, going into halftime, got that touchdown. And it's a 13-point game. You're in a situation on the road against Ohio State. Like, hey, what was the conversation piece that everybody was having at halftime? Tennessee gets the ball back. If they go down and score and they can run the football, hey, man, we got ourselves a game here. Well, Dylan Sampson gets hurt. He doesn't come back. Ohio State routes them. My point is that Nico and Tennessee relied on defense, really good defense in the running game a year ago. Dylan Sampson isn't there to save you this time. James Pierce and those dudes defensively are not there to save you this time. There's a lot of different things going on at Tennessee. Now you have to be the guy. For Tennessee to have success, I'm telling you, he's going to have to be the dude. Can he just unleash himself and say, F it? I think you bring up the best point here about why I kept Nico off my list. I kept him off my list because I don't know if he will do that. To your point, though, if Nico Iamaleava is the best quarterback in the SEC next year, I'm not shocked. That's the whole thing with me, though, on this, Joe. If he is, it wasn't shock me. I just don't know if I can see him doing that will be the question. Again, could he be the best? I'm okay. Sure. Cool.
I get what you're saying. And this is why, I don't really have a lot of pushback on your argument against him because, yeah, he still has a lot to prove, and he does need to change his play style. And Heupel needs to unlock that and get that out of him. I just get excited knowing what he's capable of and believing that if he takes just a half of a step forward, not a full step, half of a step forward, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. He's still one of the better quarterbacks in the country. He's probably going to be a guy that needs to stick around for 3-4 more years. Or no, not 4 more years. 3 more years. Probably needs to finish out. Not 3 more years. 2 more years after this one.
No, he's got 3 more years. He redshirted as a freshman.
Okay, so I am right. 3 more years of eligibility until he should be a 5-year guy. I don't think that he needs to jump to the NFL right away. Maybe somebody convinces him in the NFL to leave because he's got the tools. But he's got room for improvement. That's my biggest part. And I understand though the general fear. I typically fear quarterbacks who are afraid to take risks.
I'm very fearful he won't do it. I mean, what did you have to waste in the Ohio State game?
Well, he was a much better runner in the Ohio State game. He was willing to run, and that was kind of part of where we started to see a different version of him.
The timidness throwing the football, though, man, was god-awful.
The Georgia game for me was the best example of where he just – in Oklahoma, the 2 games where you were scratching your head, and also Arkansas.
Well, Joe, even NC State, who was god-awful. Brother, he threw 2 picks. He did not want to throw interceptions, and if he didn't think he was an instant completion, he did not throw it. He did not throw it. He had no faith in his receiving core. Let's call it what it is. He had 0 faith in it.
Well, I mean, it's kind of justified when they weren't catching shit. So.
That is true. But here's the thing, too. He better get the ball down. Joe, he airmails some stuff. He overthrows stuff. Man, That shit's start uncorking it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Make sure your mechanics are there. All right, last one. Iamaleava.
Well, so do you want to lump this in with
yes.
a little bit of spring
ball
talk?
I do have. Let's get to some spring ball stuff here too. Iamaleava was on my top 5 quarterback list in the SEC, but Joe, let's talk about some of the things that are coming out of Oklahoma in spring practice. A lot of discussions are being had around Oklahoma, from what I can tell, about Brent Venables being the DC, in-game situations being a big thing, but Iamaleava getting comparisons to Baker Mayfield. I think that is way too early to tell. But here's the big thing. Kip Lewis coming back at linebacker. Not a ton of depth at linebacker, but a lot of talent. I think that they feel that their front seven, a lot of guys, that David Stone, who was the 5-star coming back, you have a lot of interior defensive linemen, edge guys that are coming back. Defensively, they feel like they're going to be really good.
I feel like that the expectation naturally should have just been that Oklahoma's going to be good defensively because, shocker, last year they were good defensively. That wasn't their problem. It was that their offense and their offensive line was a shit show. Can we calm down with the Iamaleava stuff? Like, seriously.
I agree.
This is why I kept him off the list. He played G5 adjacent football last year. He's got some nice athleticism. He's got an okay arm. He could be really good this upcoming year. Totally could. He could finish as a top 5 quarterback in the conference, but this hype for this kid is, and it's souring for me because I was excited about him coming in, but hearing some media folks refer to him as Baker Mayfield, one of the greatest college quarterbacks of all time, it's gross. Like, holy shit, let the kid play before we put that on him.
Here's the thing that I don't hear coming out of Oklahoma, okay? And this tells me that I think that there's a little naivetism coming from, there you go, coming from the Sooner land. Brother, your O-line, I don't give a shit how good of an offensive line coach you have. Joe, they were bad. And I am going to have to see with my eyes that unit take a step forward. And by the way, be able to run the football without Jackson Arnold having to go QB power the whole time. Everybody looks at Oklahoma and says their O-line was bad, but man, they beat Bama. Brother, you're 6-7. You went into Baton Rouge at the end of the season, you got absolutely demolished. You went against some of these other SEC teams, you got patty smacked. The first half, you could say they competed with Ole Miss, but they fired their OC. It was tied at half. You come out and Ole Miss blows their doors off. That same defense was out there. Iamaleava and a new offensive coordinator is going to do wonders for them. They're not going to go 6-7 this year, okay?
They're going to improve, but this expectation that they're a national championship team is like it's weird.
It's weird, but again, Iamaleava doesn't save you from everything. If he does, then he's Superman and he's going to win the Heisman. So your comparison would be right. But even Baker didn't have to do that.
Baker had a great team around him.
He had a great team around him. But how does Jaden Gibson do? How does Giovanni Gibson do? How does Deion Burks returning do? You got like Isaiah Satanga from Arkansas that transfers in, but they got speed. They have some weapons, I guess. How does that translate, Joe? And that I like Iamaleava as a quarterback. I mean, brother, I mean, he had over 40 touchdowns a year ago. Right? Like, I mean, I don't care where you're at. That's a lot of touchdowns. That's a lot of production. I think he can be good. But man, I would caution Oklahoma fans. I mean, I hear it coming out of spring. I will caution you. By the way, Joe, how much shit did I get from Oklahoma fans on this here show about calm down, you're probably going to go 6-6. I got obliterated by that fan base. What did they go last year? I'm telling you better calm down, because I don't care how good he is. He can win. He can get you to 8-9 wins if he's that good. Running quarterbacks can do that. Is your O-line going to be productive enough, Joe? That's where I start getting questions. The D-line, too. The last thing for me. Oh, they're dominating. Well, if they're dominating, that means that the O-line that I had concerns about are not doing well.
Well, right. Yeah, I'm really interested by the buzz that's coming out of Oklahoma during this spring practices because it just feels a little lofty. I think that we need to be prepared for that. The thing is if they go 9-3, I just want to realize that is a huge accomplishment. Like that's a big step forward for them. That is a great season. And I think Mateer is going to be a really good player, but I gotta see him play first. Spring practices are always nice to learn. Like, hey, who's winning a battle? Who's kind of showing a little bit of improvement? Who's looking bigger? You're not going to tell me the full story of everything because you're going up against your own teammates.
Let's go down there. The list they have of teams just in the SEC off the top of my head. They have Texas. They have South Carolina. They have Ole Miss. They have LSU. They have who am I forgetting here? Alabama.
It's an insane stretch.
That is a brutal stretch. By the way, I'm to be convinced that they need to go to 9 conference games. If you're Oklahoma, like, no. We'll take our cupcake win here. No. There's a difference in saying this kid is really good, which I agree with them. He is. I do believe he will be good. I don't know, Joe. I mean, if your O-line is still getting beat up by a dominant interior defensive line, it starts concerning me a little bit. All right, let's move over to a team I just brought up, Alabama. Joe, some things coming out of Alabama. Ryan Grubb actually came out in an interview and talked about Ty Simpson. A lot of the buzz coming around is that Ty Simpson may be the quarterback going into the season. Ryan Grubb did say this in a press conference, Joe. He's really improving and taking steps, not massive steps, but it seems like he's taking a small step every single day. I feel like that every time that I talk to him, he's asking me questions about how he can be better on a constant basis. That sounds like a guy who thinks he's got a starter. That's what it sounds like to me when you get to that interview. The question now becomes is that now that you have Ryan Grubb and you got the receiver and Ryan Williams and you got that you have a lot that you're putting on the plate here, can Ty Simpson be the guy that leads him to a playoff? That will be my question. But the buzz coming out of spring is that he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I'm waiting to reserve judgment to see how good Ty Simpson is because I just don't. I guess first-year starter. There's so many first-year starters that we're talking about. But I think you're right. Hearing that much confidence talking about a guy, it really does sound like that's the direction that they're going in. And he's another player who's had the opportunity to sit and to observe and to learn. It's a not new system, but a new play caller. So he needs to get acclimated and adjusted to working with Ryan Grubb. But we've already known that Ty Simpson is talented. He just needed a chance to play. He needed a chance to get on the field. He also has the benefit of probably having a much better receiving room than what Jalen Milroe had this last year. I think that there's going to be a lot less volatility and a little bit more steadiness with Ty Simpson. But I think to your point, though, yeah, it sounds like he likes him.
System.
Say it again.
Especially in this system.
Yes.
Keelan Russell, from what it sounds like, has a legit chance, though. It seems like Austin Mack
I feel like a lot of young guys always get told that they have a legit chance to start, and then like a couple of days before the end of fall camp, suddenly they're, redshirted.
I actually agree with you there. That is the buzz coming out from what we hear in Alabama. By the way, LT Overton.
I'm telling you, man, that kid's going to be a top 15 pick. That kid is nuts.
I didn't even say anything about it.
Top 15 pick.
This is what I got from a source, and I'm going to leave it anonymous, but a really good source from Alabama. We think he's the best defensive lineman in the SEC.
I believe that. I believe that. He is freakish. The shit that he did last year, I thought he was going to be a top 15 pick this year.
Damn.
He's good tape. He's got really good tape.
Can we stop running two-man cover? Can we run some zone? Because you're putting him on an island. You're not giving LT Overton the ability by sitting back in coverage the whole time. You got to send some heat too. Big guys need chaos up front to get home. I'm telling you. The biggest thing from an offensive lineman, Joe, nobody will ever talk about this. I was listening to Jason Kelsey. He somewhat kind of talked about this on his podcast. Dude, I'm telling you, for a guy like him, you gotta bring more pressure. He's not going to win a lot of one-on-one battles, even though he did. You got to bring him some chaos where there's some confusion. That's where he shines when he's hitting different gaps and he can get on a half body. The question with me with Alabama is I know that LT Overton, they got some talent there. Brother, you had the best guard in the country last year potentially in Booker, and you could not run the football. Like, can this new coaching staff develop up front? I know I see that you get the talent in there. We'll talk about an offensive lineman last year. I know that you're bringing in talent. You brought in a 5-star offensive lineman. You brought in a 5-star defensive lineman. You're recruiting there. What does that production look like up front for me for Alabama will be a question. And I never thought I'd say that because Nick Saban, well, he just kept turning people out. Pause. By the way, Michael Carroll, the 5-star interior offensive lineman.
Very interesting.
What? Listen, let's see this kid first. If it is what it is, okay, in reference to this kid's going to be a day one starter at guard in the SEC, I will eat my words. However, we have seen Alabama and teams like Georgia, obviously same pedigree in a lot of different ways, that they can turn out first-year dudes and dominate. So I'm kind of waiting here. I do think that they will have an issue on the offensive line early in the season. That's my thought on it.
I think it's sometimes a double-edged sword when we talk about these young guys.
Yes,
already contributing in spring camp. Some people think that like, oh, the kid's so talented. I'm sure he's very talented, but a lot of times it does kind of mean that they're thin, that they're low on talent, and they have to throw somebody into the mix way sooner than they should. I find it typically very hard to believe that an offensive lineman is truly ready by his first year. And Proctor had a rough first year. Proctor was all over the place.
Proctor had an interesting second year.
Improved, but also not where it should be. But he was an example of a guy that probably didn't need to start right away.
Yeah. Look, one of the most interesting questions in all of college football in this year. Well, why don't we give Kalen DeBoer more than 1 year? Like, why did he have to make the playoff last year? Because he's at Alabama? Well, I mean, 35 players transferred out.
Yeah.
Man, it will be interesting with what they have. But here's the thing about Alabama I do want to point out, okay? Boy, we ain't nobody talking about old little Alabama, right? Like, we going into this offseason, ain't nobody really talking about Bama. Y'all better not do it. I've learned that I don't give a shit who's the head coach. Y'all better not do it.
They're going to be good next year. I mean, like
they're going to be all right.
Yeah.
They got a lot of things they got to figure out in the running game, though. That can't hurt them back. All right. You want to punt on Clemson spring?
Yeah, let's do that. Well, because we're going to talk ACC quarterbacks tomorrow, so we'll do Clemson tomorrow.
All right, we'll do Clemson tomorrow. By the way, hot take. Apparently, per them, Cade Klubnik's going to win the Heisman.
That I actually believe. That's a hot take I'm willing to get behind.
I'm not going there yet.
I believe it.
Beat LSU week 1. Beat South Carolina at the end of the year.
That's a great way to start his Heisman campaign.
I agree. I very much agree. If he does that, then we have an interesting discussion. All right, we'll talk about Clemson spring tomorrow. All right, we'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good one. Peace.